Hey, what's up? So what is going on, everybody? How is everybody doing today? Yeah, different setup as usual. And I think there's some things that I wanted to talk about. So I still enjoy doing the rebuilds 100%. So with 2K24 being out for a couple of months, and I've been doing my rebuilds as usual, I haven't been as transparent with you guys as of late. Like, I stopped doing the Ultimate Rebuilding series. I stopped doing the Portland Trailblazers franchise. And I think I just lost interest in those style of videos. And I still enjoy doing just the normal rebuilds because I like the aspect of the NBA and of sports of team building and building a team through drafts, trades, and free agency. And I still enjoy doing the rebuilds, and that's why I'm going to continue to post them. But I think I do want to talk a little bit more about current day NBA on the channel. So I got myself a cool little mic here, and I kind of want to just talk about stuff that's going on in the NBA. I don't really have any structure yet on these videos, and I was going to wait till December to at least start doing these, but honestly, Shams Charania just came out and reported that NBA teams are probing the availability, and there's currently like increased openness from both sides to get a deal done and look just to move on and part ways. Zach LaVine has been with the Bulls since the 2017 offseason, since the Jimmy Butler trade, where that sent Jimmy Butler to Minnesota from Chicago. The number 7 pick at the time, which ended up being Larry Marketing, Chris Dunn, and Zach LaVine, went to Chicago. So LaVine has been there since. And yeah, it's kind of crazy. This is going to be his 7th year as a Chicago Bull. He's had some up and downs in Chicago. He had some trouble staying healthy when he first got there. But over the last couple of years, Zach LaVine has been really good for the Bulls. Obviously, they really haven't had any playoff success with him on the team, really in general. They did make it in the 2021 playoffs, but lost to the Milwaukee Bucks. That team had a ton of injuries that year. So that was, the 2022 playoffs, started the 2021 season. And Zach LaVine and just the Bulls are not off to a great start this year. LaVine has been a little inefficient and not towards the norm of Zach LaVine to start off the season. The Bulls aren't very good, man. We saw what the Portland Trailblazers did in the offseason and the Washington Wizards and realized that they should move on from their stars, in which the Trailblazers traded away Damian Lillard, got great value in return. The Washington Wizards did not get equal value in return for Bradley Beal. They traded him 3 years too late. And you didn't want to see that from the Chicago Bulls. And they probably could have got a little bit of more value from Zach LaVine in the offseason because his contract is a lot of money. He's due $40 million this year, $43 million next year, $46 million in 2026, and then has an almost $49 million player option in 2027. So is a team really going to want to get up with matching salary, maybe some young assets and draft capital, and be willing to pay Zach LaVine almost $50 million in 4 years from now when he's almost 33 years old? That is going to be a tough sell for a team to want to give up those assets. Now, I do think that there's some teams in mind that would go out and trade for Zach LaVine. I think like the Brooklyn Nets come to mind. They're a team that doesn't have their first round pick in this upcoming draft. They don't really have much top end talent. They've had a plethora of injuries this season and they're staying somewhat competitive. They just drafted Noah Clowney and Derek Whitehead in this past draft. The Bulls could be interested in those guys. They do have a couple draft picks from the James Harden trade back from the 2022 trade deadline, in which they ended up trading him to Philly. They do have some draft picks from the Phoenix Suns from the Kevin Durant trade back at the 2023 deadline. Same with the Dallas Mavericks picks from the Kyrie Irving trade. So they definitely have the assets that can go out and go get Zach LaVine and really not hurt their future by any means. And I think it makes a ton of sense too, because it seems like the Brooklyn Nets were a little bit like involved in the Damian Lillard sweepstakes, and they're like, all right, if Portland doesn't want Tyler Hero, we would take on Tyler Hero. So I think they could be a team that can go out and get Zach LaVine, pair him up on the perimeter with Mikal Bridges, who's primarily known for his defense, Zach LaVine for his offense. So that could make a whole lot of sense there. And I don't think they would have to give up Cam Thomas either to get this deal done, or even Nick Claxton. They could definitely get there salary wise. They probably have to throw in Ben Simmons. So that's like a whole other thing if Chicago even wants to take on like a Ben Simmons type contract. But Brooklyn can definitely sacrifice some defense in this trade to bring in some offense in Zach LaVine. And like I said, they don't own some of their first round picks for basically the next couple of years. Either it's a swap going to Houston from the Harden trade, or just Houston just outright owns their first round draft pick. So that could incentivize Brooklyn to go out and get a deal. And I could definitely see them trying to make some type of move like this. So Brooklyn definitely came to mind as soon as I heard this rumor. Obviously, the LA Lakers are going to be in any type of rumor. Now, some of their players can't be moved till either December 15th or January 15th. Those players include Austin Reeves, Rui Hashimura, D'Angelo Russell, Jared Vanderbilt, because they all signed extensions this past offseason. So none of those guys could get moved today. Now, the Lakers do have some draft picks to move. They can move their 2029 first round pick, which would definitely have some value to Chicago. And if I were them, I would love that in return. But the players coming back for Chicago, like, am I really that interested in D'Angelo Russell if you're entering a rebuild? No, not really. Like, you're kind of watching a similar player, Jordan Poole, and what he's been to Washington, which has not been fun to watch by any means. Am I really interested in Rui Hashimura? Maybe. But do I have to move on from Patrick Williams to get that done? I wouldn't want to do that. I think, like, if you're going to enter a rebuild, now's the time time to keep Patrick Williams. Like, why trade Patrick Williams when his value is at an all-time low? He's off to an abysmal start in year 4, but he never really got a chance to really shine as a top 3 option because you always had either DeRozan and LaVine and Vucevic and all these other guys that were taking away some of his shots and his development there in Chicago. They did a very poor job developing him since they drafted him 4th overall back in the 2020 draft out of Florida State. And he probably wasn't even supposed to go that high in that draft either. So they definitely reached on him and it really hasn't worked out. So I don't think I would sell low on Patrick Williams. If you're going to rebuild, let him sign the qualifying offer and try to maybe up his trade value next year. So I think the Lakers are obviously going to get involved if they're looking for like a third offensive weapon. He might even be their top perimeter shot creator at a point. So I think LA could be involved in a LaVine trade for sure. I've been seeing some people talk about the OKC Thunder, and a lot of people on Twitter were saying, like, if the Bulls can get Josh Giddey, they have to get that done. Why would the Thunder want to take on Zach LaVine? Now, I do get their need for some maybe consistent scoring on the perimeter. Like, at times, Lou Dort can be inconsistent, even J-Dub at times, and, like, Josh Giddey has been off to maybe not the ideal start you would want from him in year 3, but I don't think you would want to really panic on that. OKC has all these assets to go out and maybe even get a bigger name, a bigger fish. Why settle for Zach LaVine? I just don't really think that makes a lot of sense. I think OKC has done such a good job developing. They have such a good young core. They have all this draft capital. I think the New York Knicks were an interesting idea in the offseason. RJ Barrett is obviously off to a better start this year than Zach LaVine. So I really wouldn't be interested in RJ Barrett trade for the Knicks really to go out and get Zach LaVine if you're giving up RJ. Now, if you want to make something work with RJ, LaVine, and Brunson as your trio and you ship off Randall, but the Knicks really don't have many players to replace Julius Randle, so I don't think that they would do that either. I think the Orlando Magic are definitely an interesting team. I think they're in a good position to try to overachieve this year and make a top 6 spot in the Eastern Conference. That is for sure wide open. They definitely can get this deal done without trading away a Franz Wagner or Paolo Banchero. Maybe they're sending Wendell Carter Jr. back to Chicago. I don't think they would have to involve like an Anthony Black either. Maybe Chicago really likes a Jet Howard, or they like a Jalen Suggs or Cole Anthony who just signed an extension, or a Markelle Fultz. I think one of those guards could definitely be expendable for Orlando, and they've been looking for some shooting from that 2-guard spot forever now. So I think Orlando could definitely be a team that could make sense, and we obviously know that these two teams have history. I don't know if Chicago wants to make another trade with Orlando after what happened in the 2021 trade deadline, and that was obviously the Vucevic trade. I feel like Miami's going to be in here as well, just because Miami is in every big name rumor, but I don't think Miami wants to give up Tyler Hero in any deal just because he's been very good this year, and you could say Tyler Hero is just as good, if not better, than Zach LaVine right now. So that really wouldn't make a lot of sense. It would probably be some type of like Kyle Lowry, Jaime Jaquez, Nikola Jovic in a first round swap, something like that, or at least a first or two going back to Chicago. I think that's not a terrible return for Chicago. I just don't really think that, I don't know. I'm not really thinking too high on Jaime Jaquez or Nikola Jovic right now. And it's not like you're trying to tank this season for like a Ron Hollander or Montes Buzelis. They should have did this last year when Victor Wembanyama was the prize. Because yeah, there is no Wemby type prospect in this draft. I would just wait till 2025 when you have Cooper Flagg in that class. Philly could make sense as well if they wanted to just kind of move on from Tobias Harris in that contract. They could probably get there without the Tobias Harris contract either. Like they could package Nick Batum, Marcus Morris, and Robert Covington, basically what they got for the James Harden deal. And then they could attach like a Jaden Springer and 2 first-round picks, because obviously they're not moving Tyrese Maxey in this deal. I just think Chicago could get a better package. I mean, Sacramento could make a lot of sense as well. They tried signing him when he was a free agent in 2018 when he was restricted. Chicago did match that offer, and they could view LaVine as a massive upgrade in the near term over Malik Monk or Kevin Huerter, who both off to not great starts this season. Lastly, I think Detroit was thrown around a little bit on Twitter, and I don't really agree with that either. I don't think I would move Jaden Ivey in this deal. I think that was been thrown around as like the top piece, and obviously Detroit is not off to a good start. They're in year 4 of their rebuild. I want to make a whole video on that and how they just kind of really screwed up the next half decade of their future when they traded for Blake Griffin. So that's a video idea I want to do as well. But yeah, I don't think Detroit should really make this nearsighted move and go out and trade Zach LaVine. That may help them be a playing tournament team, but it's really going to just be a similar move to what they did when they acquired Blake Griffin in the 2018 regular season, which that move did not really work out in the long term at all. So yeah, I just wanted to talk about kind of like Zach LaVine ideas for a little bit there. So I think there's going to be a ton of teams that could be interested in him. I did say that they should have moved him in the offseason like Portland and like Washington did with their stars. I think they should have looked to move DeMar DeRozan as well. I do think they could move DeRozan at the deadline. It's just going to be tough because he's an expiring contract. He just turned 34 years old. He's off to a fine DeMar DeRozan start, but you know he's not going to be able to space the floor. His field goal percentage has actually been down a little bit to start off the year as well. And you're going to really have to dish out almost $28 million to get a deal done. So if you're like Philly, for example, would you trade away Tobias Harris for Demar Derozan and probably have to throw in another asset as well? I don't really think that makes you that much better. Yeah, Philly can do it with kind of the people they got back in the James Harden trade. So I think Philly could make sense if they wanted to go out and get another scorer. I don't really think it would make sense for a team like Miami just to floor spacing ability, or even like Sacramento if they wanted to go out and get another big name scorer. I think Dallas would be interesting to go out and get DeMar DeRozan, but like I said, the floor spacing could really provide some disadvantages for you in your half court sets, especially if you have somebody like Luka Doncic and like you're really optimizing your offense at the best level when you have floor spacers around him. So I think it will definitely be harder to find a DeMar DeRozan trade suitor, but hey, teams will get desperate at the deadline. I think they should definitely wait on him. Nikola Vucevic just signed that extension in the offseason. I don't think anybody's trading for him at the moment. He's not off to a great start either, and he's not going to be like an elite rim protector for you. His efficiency is down. So that's going to be tough to do. Alex Caruso, though, is definitely another player that you can get a good return if you're Chicago, and they should 100% move him. He's a perfect piece on a team that's trying to win a championship. You're Chicago this year. You're not trying to win a championship. I think you can get possibly even 2 first-round picks, or at least a first-round pick and a young asset in return for Caruso. So I would actually move him sooner than later. Maybe teams would get into a bidding war over Caruso if the deadline came around and he's still performing at this top-end level on the defensive side of the ball, which I think he still will be, and he's been still solid on the offensive side of the ball. He's not giving you 20 points a night, but he can give you an efficient 8 to 10 points, give you a few assists, not turn the ball over, and yeah, like I said, play elite perimeter defense. I feel like this is also going to be Billy Donovan's last year as the Bulls head coach as they enter a rebuild. They're probably going to want a new head coach. Maybe they fire Arturas Karnisovas as well and get a new general manager in the building. So yeah, I mainly wanted this video to be about the Chicago Bulls. I think I could also talk about some other things that I just feel like talking about that are on my mind. I'm like, what's going on with the Washington Wizards, man? I just mentioned that Billy Donovan could definitely get fired at the end of the year, and I think Wes Unseld may also be a candidate to get fired at the end of the season. This team really blew a 16-point lead and didn't score one single point in the final 7 minutes of the game against the Raptors the other night. It's really all-time tanking from this team. It's really impressive. And we joked about for so long that campaign was the tank commander, and if you're trying to tank, let him get 30 minutes a night and let him run your offense. I think that may be Jordan Poole at this point. I'm going to be making a video on the second channel as well, guys that like have massively seen their stock drop and stock rise this year. I think Jordan Poole is somebody's like value that is fallen so much this year, and I think we're all selling our shares on Jordan Poole. Also want to give a shout out to Asor Thompson as well, the rookie in the Detroit Pistons. They've had a lot of lows this season, but Asor Thompson is not one of them. He had a nasty poster on Clint Capella the other night, and he's been so much fun to watch. He's a top rebounder and shot blocker in this league as a 6'7" rookie. It's incredible what he's been doing. I really like what they have in Detroit. I just don't know why they can't put wins together, man, because you got Cade, you got Duren, you got Big Stu, you have Ivy playing at a good level, even though Monty doesn't want to play him. And I know Asor has been inefficient at times, but he impacts the game in so many different ways. Killian Hayes has a little bit of a resurgence. They're going to be getting Bojan Bogdanovic back soon. They got Monty Williams. Man, I just want to see this team perform and not be one of the worst teams in the Eastern Conference once again. But yeah, I do want to make a video on talking about Blake Griffin and how that trade kind of set the franchise back a little bit. So yeah, I hope you guys did enjoy this video. Obviously, there's a big topic going on with the Chicago Bulls, and if you guys want to see these like weekly, twice a week, please let me know in the comments and let me know what you guys think of the Chicago Bulls and what they should do with their future in the near term and in the long term. And if you guys do enjoy these videos, I'd appreciate a thumbs up as well. So yeah, thank you all for watching. I love you guys, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.